Third down and 20.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. Episode 18 for us. We made it through the regular season. We're on to the playoffs. What's up, Jake and Lounis?
How are we doing, Jason?
Not much, man. I'm looking forward to watching the Bears versus Saints on Nickelodeon.
Same here.
SpongeBob in the goalpost.
I don't know why they're showing it there, but they are.
Yeah, I hear SpongeBob's going to be in the field goal post, so that'll be interesting to watch.
They're gonna do the halftime performance and like that little like dome thing.
I guess that's what what we're looking forward to this week. Some Nickelodeon episodes. But I am excited for the playoffs. This week was pretty crazy. If we want to just jump right into the recap and talk about what's going on. What about you, Jake? What are your highlights for this week?
So both my highlights come from the same game, actually. It was this Dolphins-Bills game. You know, it was basically a playoff game for the Dolphins. If they win, they're in. Unfortunate for them, circle the wagons because the Bills just routed them. And Josh Allen looked fantastic. He was 18 of 25, 224, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He got pulled from the game. They were up so much. Gabriel Davis had 100 yards and a touchdown. Diggs had another 7 receptions for 76 yards. Isaiah McKenzie had 2 touchdowns. John Brown had a touchdown. This whole team was rolling. I am really scared for any team that has to face the Bills in this playoffs. Not that it's really fantasy related, but this Bills team is rolling, and I think they have a good chance to make not even the Super Bowl, let alone I think they're guaranteed to make the AFC Finals right now. And on the other side of the ball, the Dolphins got routed and they missed the playoffs. They were 10-6, but missed the playoffs. But they did name Tua the starter for next year already, which some people are a little confused about just because they have the number 3 overall pick in this upcoming draft, thanks to that Laramie Tunsil trade this past offseason. A lot of people thought they might take a quarterback just because you're not that high up in the draft that often, and Tua really hasn't played that well. So I guess my question to you guys is, what do you think the Dolphins do at 3, and how does that affect the current roster? Because I think they should take Devontae Smith, pair him back with Tua, and just run it back.
Yeah. So I'll handle this one, I guess. We're focusing on the Dolphins. Tua did play poorly. I'll give you that. Like, he hasn't shown much that's special. He's really just kind of been game manager, which I feel like we've been spoiled with the other 2 quarterbacks this year with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. Like, they were playing, above what most rookies do. I mean, Justin Herbert literally set records for rookie quarterbacks, and Joe Burrow probably would have been right there too if he didn't blow up his knee. So, I get it. I get that there will be another quarterback up there, a Zach Wilson, a Trey Lance kind of type. But if you believe in Tua, you've seen Tua this whole season. You had Tua in your camp. You had Tua riding the bench for a while in practice. If you believe in what you see with the player, then you might as well just run with him. Like, it doesn't make sense if you like the guy to then go out and get a different guy and trade the guy you like away. Now, with that, and if they're going to do that, I like Devontae Smith, but getting him at 3 does seem kind of high for me when you could get another really great wide receiver in Jamar Chase later on if you wanted to, or Waddle, another one of Tua's teammates.
I mean, Smith might even fall a little bit if you wanted to trade back with a team that
Yeah,
wanted a quarterback or something like that. But I definitely think if for them to add another offensive weapon, just because I'm personally not sold on their offense, I think it's okay. I mean, the running backs we've seen, they've been able to work with almost nothing between, Gaskin, who was a 7th-round pick, and Salvin Ahmed, who I think was undrafted. So they've been able to work with nothing. I mean, Gesicki is very good at tight end there, but the receivers on the outside, Parker and Preston Williams, they're nothing special in my book. I mean, I think if they added, Tua's good friend, former Alabama teammate, I think it's a huge upgrade for this offense.
I do think they need a weapon. They need another solid weapon, and I think that's who they should be drafting in the first round. They do have 2 picks, so maybe they could trade down. taking someone at 3 like that doesn't make sense. But I agree, if they do trade down, they could maybe still get Devontae Smith or, Waddle or something else. But they do need weapons because when Isaiah Ford's your second wide receiver, when Preston Williams is hurt, like, it's hard for Tua to do a whole lot against the Bills defense that has one of the best secondaries in the league. So
Yeah, I'm with JT here. I mean, I've seen a lot of people mock it. I don't think I could take Devontae Smith at 3, even though it's been a popular pick. I would trade down later, maybe somewhere later in the top 10 and take a receiver there. I do think they need another weapon, though, so I agree with both of you on that.
One thing I will add real quick is that if we remember back to the Arizona Cardinals, when they had the number 1 overall selection the year after drafting Josh Rosen, they also said that they were not going to draft a quarterback initially. I don't think the Dolphins will give up on Tua. I think that they weren't lying, but that is just something to consider, that they don't have to tell the truth here. And they, as we get further through the process, what if they do fall in love with a quarterback that's on the board and just say, hey, Tua, we'll trade you for a second or first round pick. You can go kick rocks somewhere else.
I don't think it's a crazy thought.
I don't think it's crazy, but I do think it's different scenarios where you had Cliff Kingsbury like coming into Arizona, and you got a new coach in Arizona, new regime kind of thing. Like, why not have him pick his own quarterback? Which I thought the Jets would have done this year. I hope they still do it for the Jets' sake. As a Patriots fan, I'd be fine with them not doing it. But it is interesting. Like, it's different scenarios in that regard where you did see a lot more of Josh Rosen, and what you saw wasn't good. I mean, we can now see that too, where he's on the practice squad of the 49ers now, I think is where he got signed after the Bucks. So, he hasn't started another. He did actually for the Dolphins, but what we saw in the Dolphins also wasn't good. Tua, I think at least he's shown that he can win games. Like, he's good enough that he can win you games, and B, the weapons that you have on Miami, it's hard to fault him for what's going on so far. So yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy to take a Trey Lance or a Zach Wilson there at 3, but if you believe in the guy and you've seen the guy, like, why not just keep the guy?
I have kind of a wild conspiracy theory. I should have
Okay.
mentioned this in the doc.
Okay.
I could tell. I could tell Jake's like bracing himself.
Frank's already got the clown logo ready.
I'm queuing it up right now.
So I don't know if you guys saw the thing about the possible Deshaun Watson trade rumors this morning.
See that?
You guys saw that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying the Dolphins, they got Tua, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, first next season.
Okay, I actually don't hate that for either team. I'm not gonna lie, but
I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know how serious those trade rumors were, because if they are legit, then we're gonna have to look at like every team what they can offer. I'm just saying though, that's a good amount of assets if like he is somehow available.
I don't think that trade would ever come to like fruition in any sense, just because that's a lot of assets and a lot of big names and a lot of high picks that could be moved in that potential deal. But I mean, I don't dislike the idea. I think it benefits both sides if Watson wants out and he can go to a team that was 10-6 this year, good coaching staff, some potential good players around him if they keep that number 3 overall pick. Yeah, I mean, and the Houston on the other side gets a nice young quarterback, probably pick 18 from the Dolphins, assuming that they're going to have to give some pick there, and it works out.
I'm ready for the Deshaun Watson like conspiracy trade rumor stuff. I feel like that's going to be a major story during the offseason, and whether or not he gets traded could really affect dynasty teams, depending on where he goes and what happens.
I mean,
so
just any receiver tied to Deshaun Watson's value is going to go up. Look at what Brandon Cooks did at the end of the season. I think if he stays in Houston, Brandon Cooks might have some decent value for people here. But as soon as he's gone, Brandon Cooks' value, Will Fuller's value, both of them probably go way down.
all right. So I think we covered Jake's highlights well. Bills, good. Dolphins, not as good, but have a lot of assets. My first highlight is
Not
the
this.
Eagles.
Why are we doing this again?
We have to discuss it on the podcast. I want all like 5 listeners of you. I want you to all know this has been the biggest debate we've almost ever had amongst our friend group.
I think it has been the biggest, just because it was multiple days.
Yeah. There's a lot of political stuff going on.
Hurry up,
This is
let's
way
go.
way more contentious. The Eagles and Doug Peterson benched Jalen Hurts when Hurts he was 7 of 20 for 72 yards, an interception. He did have 8 carries for 34 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And they benched him for Nate Sudfeld. And according to Jake and Frank, and a lot of, personalities, ESPN and whatnot, and a lot of people around the football world, the Eagles fell apart. Their locker room, that this could destroy their locker room culture. It'll be a poison pill for the team. It could establish a culture of losing. Except wait, the players came out and said, no, we knew what was going to happen and we were okay with it. And this was just a drummed up story by the media.
Not just any players too. Jason Kelsey and Brandon Graham would probably be the 2 most important
Two
voices
of the top captains
in the Eagles locker room.
Long-time established veterans said, no, we knew what was going on. We still thought we had a chance to win. It's fine. Oh, and guess what? The Eagles get better draft picks out of it. Trying to spin this into dynasty, though, and make this more about a dynasty thing. Frank did mention
it increases their chances at one of those top receivers.
Frank mentioned prior to the pod, and it's something that we'll bring up on here. He was seeing in super flex drafts that Jalen Hurts was getting drafted as a top 10 quarterback. And to me, startup drafts. Yeah, top 10 super flex player startup draft. Quarterback. I don't know if he's top 10 overall. I doubt it. But he'd be a top 10 quarterback in super flex. Which to me, I don't know if you guys agree, is very overrated for Jalen Hurts, a player that we've only seen play a few games. I get it. I get that you like the rushing upside, and rushing upside is going to be like a very big, important factor in dynasty football for years to come because of how much more points you just get from rushing touchdowns and from rushing yards, unless you have 6-point touchdowns. But that's a story for another day. To me, though, it's just a top 10 quarterback. I don't see it. What about you guys?
Not that high. And again, I'm saying this as a Eagles fan. First off, I kind of get paranoid in general with Jalen Hurts. Like, I'd feel a lot better if training camp was right now and he was definitively the number one. But I don't know how this offseason is going to play out. I have no idea what's going to happen with Wentz. Like, say they can't really facilitate a trade and they come back with him next season. And then it's just like a competition. I'm assuming he gets moved, but obviously we don't know for sure. If for some reason maybe they decide to draft, I don't think they'll draft a quarterback, but if for some reason they decide to, but assuming Hurts is the starter entering for next year, which I think is the most likely thing to happen, I can't put him top 10. Maybe in like just because of his rushing floor, probably like the high end QB2 range, probably like somewhere like 13, 14, 15. But I can't put him in the top 10. There are so many good young quarterbacks in the league, and it's just kind of uncertain. He hasn't fully proved himself yet. I can't put him that high.
Not only, just to add on to Lounis's point, is not only are there a lot of good young quarterbacks already in the league, as you'll see later when we do our Dynasty Rookie Mock Draft, first one of the offseason, really early, but we're going to do it later in the show. There's a lot of good rookie quarterbacks coming into the league. That just adds more guys that probably will be ranked ahead of Hurts in my mind, at least.
The biggest warning sign about Jalen Hurts is that the other day Skip Bayless was saying that he is one of his favorite quarterbacks and that he thinks he's going to be around for a long time. I've seen this one too many times. Sell Jalen Hurts.
I mean,
you said that with Tebow.
I think you can justify picking Jalen Hurts, though. Like, just based on his upside alone, above players like, Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, just because, you don't exactly know what you've got with Jalen Hurts, and like you could realistically believe that, with his rushing floor and whatnot, he will be a better fantasy player for the following 3+ years, whatever. So I guess I get it, but yeah, it's tough for me. He's not top 10. It's tough for me to put him above like 13, 14 range.
Let me ask you this
And
real quick.
yep.
Where do you think, in terms of prospects, you don't even have to give me a pick. In terms of prospects in this upcoming draft, what guys would you rather have than Jalen Hurts?
Just quarterbacks, I'm assuming, right?
Any
Or are we
player.
talking all
Like
prospects?
where is the difference between, like, say, a Devontae Smith and a Jalen Hurts, or like, a Javonte Williams even? Where is the line for someone like Jalen Hurts in a class that's as loaded as this?
I don't think I'd give.
Well, now I think we're talking.
I don't
know about it first,
I
but
don't think I can give him first in this draft. We
I
just
think
did our
late
rookie.
first.
We just did our rookie mock draft, and we were just saying before that we started this recording that the second round is going to be loaded with prospects that just fall out because this draft class is so stacked. And if you're telling me that I'm going to have to give up one of those picks for a guy that I don't even know if he's going to be the quarterback, no chance.
I think I might do picks 11 or 12 for him.
Okay, pick 11 in our draft was Travis Etienne. Not to spoil anything.
No, we're talking about the NFL draft right now, right? Or are we talking? We're talking like a rookie draft.
Yeah,
I thought rookie draft.
I was saying rookie draft.
Like what rookie draft would you trade straight up?
Where does he fall in this draft in terms of rookie prospects?
I
was thinking a little bit higher than 11, to be honest.
I don't think I can give a first round.
I'd probably go 10 to 12 range.
Well, my issue with this is, so we have 4 or 5 quarterbacks who are coming in that realistically have a shot at being solid quarterbacks. You've got your obviously Trevor Lawrence, then Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, also Kyle Trask and Mac Jones. Now, where do I rank Jalen Hurts among those prospects, I think, is the real question. And where I'd rank him is probably behind Lance/Wilson as like 4 or 5 range. And to me, I think that's the very end of the first round. Because we've seen, I know you're giving me that look, Jake, but we've seen like he can play, like he did beat the Saints. He had, he's rushed for a bunch of touchdowns already. Like fantasy wise and fantasy value, like he's a better runner than I think all of those other quarterbacks. So you're just getting like
Trey. He's not better at a runner than Trey Lance.
I might take Hurts as a runner over, even though Trey Lance is the best rushing quarterback in this draft class. But Hurts is pretty good at running the football.
Yeah, he's averaged like 6+ yards per carry.
I think
each.
Hurts is someone that looks to run the ball a lot more than Trey Lance. Trey Lance does have a lot of designed runs, but when from like an actual throw, like a play action or whatever, he's much more committed to throwing the football than Hurts was.
Which is that's fair. That's what I'll continue as. We'll talk about. I think late first, early second, and I think that's kind of what he's going for at this point. I think his value skyrocketed after the Saints game. I think it's kind of slowly starting to come back down to earth.
I thought the Cardinals game was where it really blew up.
Yeah, maybe. You see 2 games, but regardless, it's one of those 2 weeks. Now we're a couple weeks removed. We've had about a month of Jalen Hurts, maybe a tiny bit longer. We've seen a little bit more of him. Yeah, that's fair. All right. I think we're good to move off this, though, if you guys want to. Keep it moving along. So my other highlight, this is kind of a hot take I've seen circling on the internet. I don't really think it's going to be this guy, but John Wolford filled in for Jared Goff. He did a solid job. He got the Rams a win. He's pushing them on to the playoffs. Are we sure Goff is starting this week? I don't know. I think he might be.
Questionable. He's
I think he
officially
is.
listed as questionable.
He was practicing today. He'll be starting.
So Goff will be starting. But are the Rams looking for another quarterback? Like, I know they signed Jared Goff to this long-term deal. And I know we've got him tied to McVay. They've been together this whole time. But, like, Jared Goff hasn't looked very dynamic. He hasn't looked like, he's been a playmaker. He's got a lot of talented players surrounding him. Of course, he did lead the Rams to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, but ultimately fell short. I think this offense could really be unlocked and taken to another level if we could get a better quarterback. Not we, but if the Rams could get a better quarterback than Jared Goff.
I don't disagree.
Go ahead.
But the Goff contract is just so massive, and it would be so much dead cap that they just can't move on from him. They're stuck with him. The first time they can really get out of this contract is after the 2022 season. There's an out in his contract, and there would still be a little over $8.5 million in dead cap, which is still nothing to just not pay attention to. It's a lot of money for an NFL cap space there. So they're really handcuffed. I don't disagree that I think this offense would be unleashed with, an elite quarterback. If they were able to get Deshaun Watson, the Rams would probably be the Super Bowl favorite from the NFC, something like that. But but they're really handcuffed, and I don't think they can really get out of that contract.
Yeah, I thought Jake summed that up well. It's one of those things where, do I think they regret that contract they gave Goff? Yes. Do I think they're actively looking for a new quarterback? Not really, because Goff's kind of like in that in between stage where it's like he's not bad enough where you're gonna be like a low tier team and be toward like the top 10 of the draft and be like, okay, we really need to replace him. But he's not good enough to be like, we trust him to win us any type of game in like the postseason. So it is a weird in between. And I think if they had the choice today, they wouldn't have gave him that giant contract. But I understood why they did, because he was a young quarterback who led them to the playoffs, led them to the Super Bowl. Even though they didn't win it, but they were still there. But I think for now, no. I think they're definitely going to just see kind of how this next year or two plays out, and then see, like Jake mentioned, they do have the out in 2022. I think they're going to see how it plays out. I think they're going to try to get their run game going better next year with Cam Akers. He had a good end to the season, and see if with a better running game, because the past 2 seasons, the running game really hasn't been that great. It's been very inconsistent. So I think they're hoping that next year they can have a consistently good running game, and then see if Goff can kind of get back to how he was that first season with McVay.
One last thing of note with the Rams, that when they went to the Super Bowl, their offensive line ranked very highly and was one of the best in the league. I believe this year was ranked one of the worst. They did have some injuries. I think Whitworth went down, and a few other guys went down on that line. So they were really, Goff was just under pressure the whole time and really couldn't run the offense the same way as back when they made the Super Bowl.
I am so happy you brought that up. This is a football. Jared Goff struggles against pressure. When he's able to have time in the pocket and a running game, he looks great. When he can't have time, he's under pressure, he looks like trash. I think that's the story with Jared Goff. He's never going to be that elite guy, but he'll always be around that 15 to 18 quarterback kind of range. And for me, I think that's good enough. I wouldn't look to get rid of him.
Especially
that just sounds
if
like
they can add some offensive line help either in free agency or the draft. I think they'll be just fine with Jared Goff. I don't think there's a way to get out from under this contract, and I think the best way is just to build around him instead.
it does. I do agree that it would be hard to get rid of Jared Goff, and he's still a solid quarterback when he does have a line. But it does sound like they're going to be destined for a long time of quarterback purgatory, where Jared Goff does just enough to get you into the playoffs, get you maybe a win or two in the playoffs, but then ultimately they don't hit that goal. You see it with a lot of teams, and I do think that's what the Rams' destiny is shaping up to be.
JT, I want to ask you, and you specifically.
Yeah.
Do you think, are you labeling Jared Goff a system quarterback?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think, just being tied with McVay, it would be interesting to see Jared Goff on a different team with a different coach, what he's capable of doing.
You didn't like the Jeff Fisher Jared Goff?
No. Well, look, he didn't play well under Jeff Fisher. Like being tied with McVay is what brought them to the Super Bowl. Now it sounds like, I've heard rumors, I don't know how true it is, that McVay is getting more predictable with his play calling. It's getting easier to tell what's going on with the Rams. I can't substantiate that, but do you think Jared Goff's a system quarterback?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like for me that's an easy answer. Maybe Frank, I don't know if you feel differently. Jake, I don't know if you feel differently, but for me, it's definitely yes. I think like if he was on a team like, for example, like if you threw him on say the Eagles roster this year, that would have been a shit show.
Oh, with that even
Well,
worse
behind that
offensive
offensive
than
line.
the Rams. Yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah, and
I
that
don't
receiving
think
crew.
Jesus Christ himself would have success on the Eagles as a quarterback right now.
Well, they tried Nate Sudfeld and that didn't work.
Wasn't fair to him.
Lounis, what are your highlights?
My highlights are so my first one is so the Jets now we know are gonna have the number 2 pick this upcoming draft. We saw recently in the Clemson versus Ohio State matchup, Justin Fields, anyone who pays attention to that, he was phenomenal. He was completely amazing. He outperformed Trevor Lawrence, and I think he for sure solidified himself, well, at least to me, as the number 2 quarterback in this draft class. Because I know originally some people were starting to lean Zach Wilson, and I don't know, maybe some analysts still do. You obviously don't overreact to one game, but for me, like I was kind of already leaning Fields, and now it's definite that he's my QB2. So the Jets obviously have the number 2 pick. They also have Sam Darnold on the roster. I was wondering what you guys think the Jets. Kind of 2-question part. What do you guys think they should do? Dash. What you think they will do? They're gonna have a new head coach, and then they have the chance to either A, take Fields. If they stay tuned and don't take Fields, I'm guessing it would be the tackle from Oregon. Forgot his name off the top of my head. Trading down to somewhere else in the top 10.
Sewell. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
but,
Sewell.
Jake, you go first because I've got a hot take about this whole scenario. So you handle it first, and I'll let you know.
If I am the New York Jets, I hate to say it, but I'm not taking a quarterback. I don't think Darnold is any worse than the guys not named Trevor Lawrence. I think he has all the talent is there. I've hated on Sam Darnold before, but I think I'm gonna give him one last chance, and it's because the Adam Gase not being there effect. I guess I don't know what we're gonna call that one, but the Tannehill scenario here, where Gase leaves and now every player blossoms. And depending on, I actually think it really depends more on the head coach. I think if you're the Jets, you should probably hire a head coach that's going to pair well with Sam Darnold here. Because if you don't, it just doesn't make any sense. And you're setting yourself up for even more failure and drafting another quarterback probably next year. So you have to get a coach that's going to pair well with Sam Darnold. I don't know if that's Eric Bieniemy of the Chiefs. I don't know if that's another guy in the league that's really going to unlock his potential, but he seems to be the one that I'm thinking off the top of my head as an offensive mind, played with Patrick Mahomes. So guys like that. And if you do that, I think you can either take Sewell or tackle from Oregon, or you can trade back and get a haul. Because someone's going to want to take Justin Fields that needs a quarterback, and they're going to want to take him really bad. And you'll be able to get a first-round pick this year, probably a first-round pick next year, and maybe, a third-round pick somewhere else, and just really build your roster because the Jets have so many holes, and I just don't think Darnold's the biggest one here.
I think you gotta get rid of Darnold. And I think you take Justin Fields. And my hot take on this is I think Justin Fields is closer to Trevor Lawrence than he is to Zach Wilson or Trey Lance. Like, I think he's much better than a lot of people are giving him credence and credit to. And that's because you have players like Dwayne Haskins and Terrell Pryor and whatnot coming out of Ohio State. So immediately people, their first, implicit reaction is Justin Fields, not as good, could be like a Dwayne Haskins, could, be a first round bust. We saw Dwayne Haskins was picked in the first round, I think picked like 15. He's no longer on the team a year and a half later. So it does hurt him in that regard. But what I've seen from Justin Fields as a prospect, not just in this Clemson game, I know he had a bad game 2 weeks ago, but not just in this Clemson game, but what I've seen from him last year to now, he's looked very good. He's easily my number 2 prospect. If Lawrence wasn't here, he'd be the first by a long shot, I think. But I think, with Lawrence here and everything, stealing a lot of the thunder, Justin Fields is getting neglected. And I do think he's someone that will be a franchise quarterback. Like, I think he will be that guy. He will be the one that everyone will lean on. And I think the Jets would be doing themselves a disservice to stick with Sam Darnold when they could get Justin Fields. Now, could we look back on this YouTube thing and look, compare me to a Skip Bayless or Colin Cowherd for this take? Of course we can. But I don't believe it. I think Justin Fields is the guy. I think he will be the guy for the Jets, and I think he's someone that you got to build around.
Yeah, with that scenario, I understand, and I have some Jets fans who actually want them to trade back and just get a new coach to work with Darnold, because I do think Darnold is a talented starting caliber quarterback in this league. Don't get me wrong. I think if it's not going to be on the Jets, he can be a starter on some other teams. But if I'm the Jets, man, is it hard to pass on Justin Fields? Like, especially if a new coach is coming in, if it does end up being Eric Bieniemy, the 49ers defensive coordinator, I know they interviewed.
Solid.
Yeah. And so it's tough, but I think they can get some value for Darnold, and that's a whole separate discussion in terms of how much value. But I just really like Fields. I don't know if I'm willing to go as far as JT with Fields being closer to Lawrence than he is
Told you
to
it was a
Zach
hot take.
Wilson. I mean, I respect it. I like it. I like the hot takes. I definitely I have him above Zach Wilson, but I don't know, like, if it's as close to Lawrence, like being close to Lawrence than Zach Wilson. But I think it's really tough. I would listen to offers and see if there's one that just kind of blows you away. But I think I would stay put and take Fields just because a new coach might want like a fresh start, and Darnold needs to get paid after this year anyway. And I don't think they're going to be in a situation where they can have a top 3 pick again soon. At least I don't know. And I'm assuming with a new coach that can work with Darnold well, they're going to be somewhat better. Like, not like good, but like probably like the 6-win range.
Also, with the new CBA,
Mhm.
CBA, that 5th-year option for quarterbacks is really expensive. So if you're the Jets, you basically have 1 year to decide if you want to pay Sam Darnold a chunk of change or let him go. And JT, I kind of agree with you, dude. Like, stop the Haskins to Justin Fields comparisons. They're different players. The only thing they share in common is playing at Ohio State. And that's really it. I agree with you. I think that if you're the Jets, you're almost forced to move on because of your situation. Like, are you really going to tie up that much money to Sam Darnold unless he really shows you something in the offseason? I don't know.
Okay, Frank, let me ask you one question, though. What is the Jets' biggest hole?
Everything.
Exactly.
Exactly. But what do you want him to, like? What was
I understand the argument.
What was the Bengals' biggest hole last year?
I mean, they didn't have a quarterback on the roster, so yeah.
But
That's true.
like Sam Darnold can get you value to then replace things. Like you're getting a cheaper quarterback where the Jets have some of the biggest cap room in the league. So, you can go and buy your replacements, and you can, rather than spend all that money on Sam Darnold.
You
Well,
don't have to trade Sam Darnold. You can take Justin Fields and not trade Sam Darnold. Like that is a possibility. It sounds weird, but that is a thing that you can do.
You can. I don't think they will. I don't think any team that takes a quarterback in the top 5 is really going to stick with their young quarterback that they could trade for some decent value.
Especially because I think Darnold will request a trade. I think he'd want out also.
The problem with Darnold is that he's a project. Everyone knows he's still a project. So it's like you're basically evaluating, okay, who is a better project between Fields and Darnold? Well, you can make the clear argument Fields has more talent. He just by the hype coming out of high school. The kid's been an insanely hyped prospect since high school, on top of the fact that the finances just work out better. I think it's just so many things are working towards taking Fields, and just whether you think Darnold can pan out or not, it's just almost like, okay, it just hasn't worked. Let's just start clean and not tie up millions upon millions of dollars to a guy that's still a project.
That's a very fair point.
I think that's what I'm agreeing. Yeah, I'm agreeing with
That's
that.
going to be one of the storylines I think is one of the most interesting in the NFL this offseason. What the Jets do with that second pick.
They'll definitely be in the top 5, probably top 3, actually.
And, I definitely think that's going to depend heavily on what coach they hire. They just hired a new GM last year, so he might want to get a new guy. He kind of inherited Sam Darnold, and a new head coach now might want to bring in his own guy as well. So I definitely think it's a good chance that they do take Justin Fields. I just don't know if I would do the same.
What's crazy, before we move on really quickly, is that the Jets control the draft at the number 2 spot. Everyone knows Lawrence is going 1, but what they do changes everyone else's draft completely.
I think Fields is for sure going number 2. I just don't know if it's going to be the Jets. Like, I think if the Jets don't pick Fields, they're definitely going to trade down and not just stay there and take Sewell. Like, I think there'll be teams offering a lot to take Justin Fields at 2.
I don't know if that's consensus opinion right now, though. I agree that that's what should happen, but I don't like. We were looking at mock drafts before to determine a rookie draft, and Justin Fields at 2 was not always a definite thing. So
the game versus Alabama can help him a ton.
I mean, if he goes out,
I think it's going to be interesting.
If he beats Alabama, I think he completely solidifies himself as the number 2 pick. Not even close.
Yeah, and I don't even think he needs to. He doesn't even need to beat Bama. Just if he has like a good performance. Like that's tough to beat, but if you just play well against them, that would be impressive on his end.
All right.
This is a side kind of news related thing I just saw. It's not my second highlight yet, just because we spoke about it. This was a report from Ian Rappaport because we were talking about Deshaun Watson earlier, 10 minutes ago, saying Deshaun Watson is extremely unhappy with the organization after the owner, McNair, informed him he would be involved in the GM and coach hiring process and provide feedback, but then did not talk to him once in the hire of the new GM, Caserio. And Deshaun Watson has not spoken to any Texans brass the last few days, even though they've tried to call him a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'd probably be frustrated too that you're supposed to be the franchise quarterback and then no one reaches out to you about what's going on in the future. So yeah, this Deshaun Watson drama is going to hit a crescendo pretty soon, it seems like. Would not be surprised if he's on another team. But damn.
That'd be crazy if he switches teams.
That Texans owner should write a book on how to not run a franchise.
Literally, like Deshaun Watson's pretty much all the Texans have right now. Like you don't have a first or a second. AJ Watt's getting old. Okay, my second highlight this week. JT, your guy. JT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor. He went crazy this weekend. I'm pulling up the exact stats from this weekend's game. Yeah, so he had 30 carries for 253 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yep.
He finished the season the NFL's 3rd leading rusher. What was he over? He was the number 6 running back in half PPR. But he had an insane finish to the season. Now we did do our running back rankings a couple weeks ago. Kind of, I don't remember exactly which week, maybe week 12, week 13. And maybe even a little bit later. But obviously Dynasty stuff switches up a little bit on a week to week basis. Where right now, I would say like heading into next season, would you guys rank Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty running backs after his strong finish to the season?
I want to know what's going on with New Orleans before I, really go out on a limb and say it. But
You're about to
I think
put Lounis
Jonathan,
Amirat.
he's top 3. He's top 3 in my opinion. If Drew Brees is not back, I think he's 3, maybe 2.
I love JT giving hot takes. It makes me feel
Maybe
less
2.
alone.
But they're not. All right, I've given hot takes before.
No, I
But when
respect
have
it.
when have they really been that wrong? I mean, my hottest take was Sam Darnold will no longer be the quarterback of the Jets this year, and that was that became evident pretty quickly.
That's a pretty good take. Pretty good take.
Now you gotta think to yourselves, right? Every other quarterback that's running back that's consistently in the top 5, they're all 25, 26 years old. And we know that running backs just tend to fall off a cliff. We kind of saw it with Zeke this year as far as value is concerned, where Zeke's value just dropped off a cliff. Jonathan Taylor's 21, and he might have just turned 22, but he's younger than Najee Harris. I think he's like the same age as Travis Etienne. Like, they're all the same age. He's the same age as the rookies coming out this year. So they're not going to surpass him. He's behind a good offensive line. I mean, they dropped off a little bit. One thing I'll concede is I know he had the bad couple games in the middle of the year, and people were saying his vision's terrible and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, against all the bad teams, he had really good games. I get that. But if you look at the game and you look at the script, you can see that the field is the pace of play has slowed down for him. He's able to see the cuts that he's supposed to be making. He's making them. He's, just moving his legs, driving his feet. He just ran over, I forget who, on the Steelers into the end zone that week.
We don't talk about it.
Sorry, Frank. I mean, the Steelers won, so it's like, what's the issue?
Not that play.
Sure, they did not win that play. But he's a different player. He's shown that he's willing to hit the hole. He's shown that he's got the vision. And just who can you justifiably put ahead of him? You could put ahead of him CMC just because of how much more versatile he is. And then justifiably, I don't know who else.
Saquon Barkley,
Dalvin.
You're a Giants homer.
Cook, Kamara,
No,
Derrick Henry.
definitely not.
Definitely not
What do
Henry.
you mean? He just ran for 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
He's also
370
he's
carries for like 2-3 seasons in a row. That's
I
gonna
get
last.
Derrick Henry's a different
He's
animal.
not a human. Have you seen him compared to any other running back in the league? He's 6'5", and he's not
I know,
6'5".
I get
know,
he's
like,
a different being, but
so big.
Jonathan Taylor has very similar comps to Derrick Henry as far as that's concerned. Like, I get he's not as big and everything, but the play style and the running is very similar. And guess what? His biggest knocks against him were pass catching and fumbling. And guess what he hasn't done this season? He's caught the ball and he hasn't fumbled. He's fumbled once? Like, he's a very good player.
When we did our running back rankings, I think I had him at 7 or 8, and I still have him about there. I mean, I expected him to come out and have a fantastic rookie season behind one of the best offensive lines in football, and that's exactly what he did. I have him ranked very highly. I have him in my top 10 running backs, but to put him in your top 3 over guys that have consistently done it I just don't see it.
So your argument...
I understand you're saying it's because of the age difference here, but Saquon Barkley is 23 years old. Dalvin Cook is 25 years old. Just those two guys alone, like, you can see my point here. And we're not even talking about Christian McCaffrey. So, like, you have guys here that are just not significantly older. And I know the age that running backs fall off is very young. They typically fall off 27, the latest, or pretty much is with a typical age that a running back falls off. So I understand they're getting up there, but for next season, I don't see him having a better season than Saquon. I don't see him having a better season than a healthy Christian McCaffrey. I don't even see him having a better
McCaffrey, I'll
healthy
give you.
season than Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry next year. So,
Are we sure? Are we sure? Because your whole thing is we haven't seen him consistently do it. But he finished RB6 on the year. You have to have some kind of consistency to do that. Like you have to be. He missed a game too, did he not? He missed a game because of COVID. Still finished RB6.
I'm not
I just think
I agree. I have him in my top 10 running backs, no doubt in my mind. I probably have him in my top 7 running backs, no doubt in my mind. But top 3, I can't do top 3 yet. Let me see another half season of them before I can put him in my top 3.
it'll be too late for you to go get him. Though.
So,
I mean, you have him. I'm not getting him anywhere.
I'm not
I don't
trading
think
him.
any young talent owner in their right mind is giving him up right now for anything less than 2 first-round picks and a decent player.
More than 2 first-round picks.
And a player. I said.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what decent
how good
player.
the player is.
Yeah.
Depends on the
So-
first as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go top 3 yet, but I'm going top 5. Now the ranking is where it gets interesting.
Yeah. Let's
I
hear
do have
it.
Jonathan Taylor in my top 5 now. I've got McCaffrey and Kamara at 1 and 2.
My issue with
If you tell me Saquon is going to stay healthy, he's definitely 3, possibly surpassing Kamara at 2. I'm assuming Saquon. I'm not going to be here to predict injuries, so I'm assuming Saquon is going to come back healthy. So I'm putting Saquon at 3. Because if we're going to put Jonathan Taylor this high over his rookie year, how are we ranking Saquon after his rookie year?
well, we
Which
did.
was insane. Saquon's rookie year was phenomenal.
We put Saquon. Would you not like Saquon was like what RB1
Yeah.
going into 2018 or whatever
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was?
The difference is Saquon was a generational prospect. You don't have running backs going in the top 5 of drafts, but without them being a generational talent. And guys like that
You drafted. I get this whole generational talent nonsense, but like you drafted Jonathan Taylor at the beginning of the 2nd round. It wasn't like he was a.
I'm not saying there's not a high draft capital invested in Jonathan Taylor. A 2nd round pick is a lot. But it's not the 2nd overall pick in the entire NFL draft like Saquon Barkley was. It's not even like the 4th overall pick like the Cowboys.
Do you wish the Giants picked Saquon at 2?
Yes, I love the
Do you think
pick.
it's a mistake?
Hold
No.
on. Let me cut in here real quick. First off, Saquon was drafted by a complete boomer who, in his era, running backs were drafted top 10 all day.
Thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
Second off, Jonathan Taylor, according to my rankings last year when he was coming out, was a first-round talent, and I had him as the consensus 101 in rookie drafts last season over Joe Burrow. So, while, yes, Jonathan Taylor wasn't this talent that Saquon Barkley was, I think that his draft position does not do his talent as a pure runner of the football justice.
I agree. He fell. Everyone thought he was going to be a first-round pick in last year's draft. He fell to the top of the 2nd round. I understand that. But it's still not the only guys that we really have seen. I guess that's not true. I guess Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook, they were all about the same draft position. But, Zeke and McCaffrey and Saquon, those guys were all top 10 picks in the NFL draft.
Yeah, which makes it a fair case. I think my final rankings are gonna go McCaffrey, Kamara, Saquon. Saquon and Kamara are really close, but so is Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor at 4, Dalvin Cook at 5. I think that's how I have them lined up. With Dalvin Cook being a very close 5 also.
So
those 2 were tough to decide.
So for you, the only person you have
Saquon
Kamara
ahead.
and you have Saquon ahead.
Yeah.
And Jake, you have Saquon, Kamara, and Cooks ahead, and maybe one other player.
Maybe one. I would have to look at it. Like he's just. My point was he's not top 3. I told you he's top 7 worst. I think he'll probably end up being 5 or 6 realistically. Like I said, I love him. I think he's worth it if you can get him for anything less than 2 first-round picks. Do it. But I can't put him ahead of those other guys right now.
Man, we are sleeping on Nick Chubb. That's all I'm saying. We are sleeping on Nick Chubb as a
Chubb's
pure
right
runner.
up there after the
I
top
like
5.
Nick Chubb, but when I
I
get that
see
they
where you're coming from, JT. The whole situation and age and all those factors. Yes, he's not more valuable than Jonathan
Frank,
Taylor.
Where would you rank Jonathan Taylor? I'm just kind of intrigued.
I think in that 6, 5, or 7 spot. I think I'm lower on Kamara than y'all are, just because JT alluded to it earlier. Without Drew Brees, I'm not sure Kamara can keep up this production, because you have to remember, Kamara is not, if you just take his running stats, his stats would just be average at best. Like his receiving numbers carry him.
Yeah, he had 187 carries last year. For comparison, Dalvin Cook, RB3, had 312.
And Henry, I think, had like 370 or something.
378. Yeah, 380 almost.
Crazy.
Like, I'm not panic selling Kamara or anything. It's just, Lounis, you have him at your number 2 spot. I just think that little bit of concern. I'm taking Dalvin. I'm taking Saquon, Henry. I think that Kamara is more around that Nick Chubb range, but he obviously has that huge upside. And then, for this season, he was definitely higher than Chubb. But looking forward, it's just, I can't be that confident to put Kamara number 2 and be like, oh, here we go, Kamara number 2. In my startup draft, I'm taking him first round, and I'm feeling real giddy about it.
Frank, I don't think Kamara is a sure thing moving forward, just because of the Saints quarterback situation. We have no idea what it's going to be. Obviously, he's a super talented back, and he can do it all on the offense. He can run, he can catch, he can block. He does it all. But just without Drew Brees, it's an unknown commodity, and that always just puts some concern in people's eyes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was some spirited debate there. You guys want to move on to our trending up, trending down?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'll kick it off with my trending up of the week. It is Lamar Jackson. And just as I predicted, about around mid-season, when Lamar Jackson was struggling and having all these bad games, and so he finished the year with 5 straight games of over 20 fantasy points, and 2 of them 30 plus. So he really had a nice end to the season, just like I predicted. And just like I predicted, I am going to sell him at all costs, just because right now his stock is very high, and he's left a great taste in fantasy players' mouths, and looking like the old Lamar Jackson. He ended up finishing QB 10 on the year, which is still fantastic, still a great season for a guy, but it's not the MVP season from last year that everyone was expecting. So he's trending up just because he's had a fantastic end to the season against a lot of not great teams, but I'm going to sell him. What would I look to sell him for? That's a great question, guys. I'm looking for a lot, just because we're assuming Superflex here, and he is a top 5 dynasty quarterback. I'm looking for a top asset or a whole bunch of picks, and I'm going to take a quarterback in this draft because I love him.
Are we sold that he's a top 5 currently? You got your Mahomes. You got Mahomes and you got Kyler. I think we'd agree that they're 1, 2. 3, Josh Allen. 4,
Deshaun Watson's got to be in there too. Around that
I was going to say
top
Deshaun
5
Watson.
fantasy.
You know who I'm putting 5?
Then from there, I guess it depends. Do you like? Would you rather have Lamar or Herbert?
I'm putting Herbert at 5.
Oh, I was even thinking Russ or
Dak.
Russ is there too.
I mean, he's
I
not.
always forget about Russ.
Right.
I always think young quarterbacks. Russ is for sure there.
Jalen Hurts.
Get out of here! Shut up.
In interest of time, like I think we agree. Like, he's right around quarterback 5. I'm not sure he is quarterback 5, but he's still up there, and you should get that kind of value for him. But what does that value entail? Like,
I mean, let's call it a top 7 dynasty quarterback for the argument's sake here, that's a lot. That takes a lot to get in a super flex league here, especially because he's only 24 years old. You could easily have him playing your quarterback position for the next 10 years. Like, you're going to have to give up a good chunk of change here.
Weren't you the one, though, that was like, I'm worried about running quarterbacks and that they could fall off the cliff one injury?
I am. I agree. That's why I am personally looking to sell him. I think his value is very high right now because of the way he finished the season, and I think it's a perfect time to sell Lamar Jackson.
Straight one for one trade. Would you do this? You are the Lamar Jackson owner. The Justin Jefferson owner is like, hey, I need a quarterback. I'll give you Justin Jefferson for Lamar. You doing that?
Wow, that's spicy.
That is spicy.
That's spicy.
That really makes my mouth water a little bit,
I'm bringing the heat to today's episode. I just,
JT, you are on your A game, dude.
JT's taking the hot takes.
It would be tough, depending on my quarterback situation. If I still had 2 viable quarterbacks, yes, because Justin Jefferson is a top 10 dynasty wide receiver, and that just makes sense to add right there. So it really depends on my quarterback situation. If you don't have 2 viable quarterbacks, I might want to grab a second-round pick and maybe grab a Mac Jones, a Kyle Trask, or if one of the other top quarterbacks falls, just so you have a backup plan there at quarterback.
All right.
Hold on. I own Justin Jefferson. Okay. If I own Lamar, I am not doing that. I still value Lamar over Justin Jefferson. Is that like a hot take? Because I have Justin Jefferson. Should I just start sending out some offers? Like,
it's not a hot take.
I think it's a hot take.
I do think they've gotten really close in value.
I think the quarterback does have more value, and that's what I'm saying. I think I'd want a little more just to top it off, but Justin Jefferson holds a lot of value, especially just because he's already been a top 10 wide receiver as a rookie. Like, he holds a lot of value. I don't know if you think he's going to continually be it, but he's a very talented player. And I'd want a little more. Like I said, I'd want a second, maybe 2 seconds in Justin Jefferson for Lamar. But that's probably pushing it, and I probably wouldn't. The owner, Justin Jefferson, may not do that. But I'll throw that offer out in our league. Just saying.
That's an interesting offer.
I'm sure the guy that owns Justin Jefferson in our league is looking for a quarterback. So,
we're gonna be obsessed with holding
us. Let's move on to who your trending down is.
My trending down is Chris Carson. He's had a good season. He's missed a good chunk of it just due to injuries. But that's always the case with Chris Carson. He's always injured. He always misses a few games during the season. And when he plays, he looks great. But on top of that, this year, the reason he's trending down is because he is a free agent. I don't know if the Seahawks re-sign him. And I don't think he holds as much of value if he goes anywhere else besides Seattle. I think he's really, found himself a nice spot with Russell Wilson and with DK and Lockett on the outside now. It's just the perfect offense for him. He fits that offense. He fits that team. They like to run the ball a lot, even with those offensive weapons and Russell Wilson at quarterback. If he leaves, I just don't like it. On top of that, he's already, I think, 27. Let me check that really quick. He's 26. I'm sure he'll be 27 by the time next season starts. So that's the age where you're trying to sell a running back, just because it's the typical age when they start to fall off, especially one that's had a lot of injury problems in the past.
Yeah, his free agency situation scares me because, like, I feel like the only place I trust him in is in Seattle. I think anywhere else, it's a huge question mark, because you've mentioned also he does have an injury history. I don't know what kind of numbers he'll put up when he's not in kind of like that high-scoring offense with Russell Wilson. More backs are coming in every single year. There's a couple good free agent running backs. So he's someone, if if people in your league, if anyone in your league still high on him, I'd see what they'd want for him. Because I'm very iffy on him heading into next season.
Yeah. I'm afraid of him going into free agency. So I'm on the same page with you guys.
JT, who you got on the up?
Yep, it's someone we've talked about.
This is a surprise.
Someone we talked.
JT's like his own player. Oh,
We're not doing that here. We are not. I picked your players last week. I rarely, if ever, pick my players. Some malarkey. And someone I feel like we got to address. Because over the past 6 games, Marquise Hollywood Brown has caught 6 touchdowns. So, it's someone that was getting a lot of heat. It's someone that I got a lot of, flack for in my predictions when I said he was going to be a wide receiver 2. He ended up being a wide receiver 3. It's not ideal for someone who's supposed to be the first wide receiver on the team, but we've seen the connection with Lamar Jackson and Hollywood start to increase. Now they have been playing bad defenses, but he's also becoming a lot more experienced. He's a year removed from that, nagging foot injury too. And he's someone I'm kind of excited going into this next season. Now, I would caution everyone where this could be the case of that guy that perpetually gets that offseason hype and then kind of falls flat in the regular season. But, even if the Ravens go out and get like an alpha wide receiver, I don't hate Hollywood just because I don't think his role really is to be the alpha wide receiver. It's to take the top off defenses. It's get the ball into his hands. He's going to make a play. I think that's the kind of player he is, and he's someone I'm excited to see what he can do going forward.
To me, he falls in the same boat as Lamar Jackson.
So it's fair.
I'm buying
don't know
him,
if I'm
dude.
selling
I am
Hollywood.
buying Hollywood. I've loved him since he came out. I wish you would have sold him to me, JT. You hit up
I didn't know you
everyone
were
else in
buying.
our league besides me, who would have actually bought the motherfucker.
But you didn't approach me about
Marquise
him.
Brown. If you can get him for cheap, this guy is so talented. I think he could honestly have a Calvin Ridley-esque, climb next season.
That's the kind of spice I want to hear.
And now this is the offseason to buy him because he's not going to be hyped. Everyone's going to remember, oh, well, he sucked in the beginning of the season. Guess what? He's good. He is a good player, and you could get him for cheaper than you should be able to probably.
Sell all Ravens not named J.K. Dobbins. I'll say it again.
The final 6 weeks of the season, he got double-digit points in all of them in half PPR.
Okay, who did they play? Read those opponents, please. Enlighten me.
I can read them off. We had at Pittsburgh. We had Dallas.
Okay.
The defense is
Okay, go on.
getting a little
Okay.
bit
The
better.
elite Cowboys defense.
At
The number one
Cleveland.
deep.
At Cleveland. We had Jacksonville.
Yeah,
That was kind of tough. We had the New York Football Giants,
yeah,
and we had at the Bengals.
yeah.
It's okay. There are some bad teams, but I was impressed by him. I like him. I don't think I'm selling him.
He's someone that shows you get the ball in his arms, he can make a play. He's one of the few players in the league that he can turn something out of nothing and just out of nowhere he'll have a 60-yard touchdown. Now you do have to take the duds though, because he could put up a 1 catch for 10 yards kind of game too. But I don't know. I just like his explosiveness. I like what he can do with the ball. Moving on. My other guy, it's someone
player I don't like the fit. Put it that way. I don't like him with Lamar Jackson at quarterback.
Okay.
I love the fit. Move on.
Someone else that I feel like always gets this perpetual hype going into the offseason, it'll be his 3rd offseason, is Christian Kirk. And he's my trending down. And you're going to hear it. You're going to see people post about it. I think, has Larry Fitz officially announced that he's retiring? I thought I saw that.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah. So Larry Fitz is going to be gone. And everyone's going to be like, here's the volume for Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is going to be that wide receiver that we've been looking for. He's got DeAndre Hopkins taking away all the coverage on the one side of the field. We'll see Christian Kirk. But we haven't really yet, and Larry Fitz has been hurt, and he's been out with COVID, and we haven't seen that much go on. And guess what? The Cardinals have a high draft pick. In the mock that we're doing, not to give a lot of spoilers, but they're going to pick Kyle Pitts in this mock. Who's to say they don't also pick a wide receiver instead?
There's no shot they do that, by the way. They have Dan Arnold, top
They
tight
could.
end. Just
It's clearly because teams will outbid them for Dan Arnold.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But like we're relying on Christian Frank with his Dan Arnold. We're relying on Christian Kirk to get a lot of volume. It's not guaranteed he's getting all this volume, and it's like,
can we just name it the Christian Kirk paradox to go along with the Joe Mixon paradox? It's just like,
I think we need a different name than paradox, but yeah.
The Christian Kirk situation where it's like everyone always thinks he's going to be good. It's just a question of volume, when it's like maybe he just hasn't been good and that's why the volume isn't there.
It's definite possibility. It's something that I'm starting to lean more and more towards.
I mean, the volume will
now, if you want,
fully be there. They do have a guy named DeAndre Hopkins locked up for the future that is going to be their number one wide receiver.
Yeah, but like look at number two receivers though, right? What else could you possibly freaking need? You have D-Hop, who's getting doubled left, right, and center. You have Kyler Murray, one of the top quarterbacks, who's not a Tom Brady. This is a guy that like rolls out and extends plays all the freaking time. And they're throwing it to Larry Fitzgerald and Dan Arnold over you. Like, I'm sorry. At what point is it just there's too many guys instead of you just maybe not being all that good?
Well, Dan Arnold's an elite tight end, so that's part of the issue. But yeah, that's Frank said my point a lot better than I could have, and that's where I'm coming from. Now, I guess devil's advocate, that might make him a good buy though, because I feel like a lot of people are in the same situation as myself. I don't own Christian Kirk. I used to, but I think you could get him for cheap, and theoretically, he could see a lot of volume, and he could, have this huge rise. I don't see it, because this is now going to be his fourth year, right?
Yeah.
This is not his third. This is going to be his fourth.
Yeah.
Odds aren't in his favor.
He's just living off of his draft capital.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm generally with you. I think the Cardinals will bring in another weapon this offseason, whether it be possibly a Kyle Pitts or like a receiver in the second or third round, maybe even the first. So I anticipate them bringing in another weapon for him. And yeah, Kirk's someone I've kind of been waiting to be really good. He had a good 4-week stretch in the middle of this season, randomly. I remember weeks 5 through 9, he put up 10.5, 21.5, 18, and then 20.8. And then just after that, he never hit double digits again until week 16. So it's just, I don't know if I can count on him. If they bring in another receiver, he'll be a really good number 3 in an NFL offense. But again, this is someone who, like, if it was one of those players where like everyone's just kind of waiting on him to have like a full breakout, and he's shown flashes in particular games or mini stretches, but it hasn't happened yet. And like Frank said, he's literally in the perfect situation. DeAndre Hopkins always takes the number one corner. You have an elite young quarterback. I don't know why it hasn't fully been there.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, who are you trending up and trending down, Lounis?
So my trending up this week is Darnell Mooney. So this has a couple different factors. First off, I've thought he's impressed me his entire rookie season, and his stats should be better than what they are. We've seen, I'm sure you guys have both seen it, like all those particular plays where he runs a great route and he's open deep, or just whether it be Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky just misses him on a deep route. And even with that, this season he put up, I'm getting his exact numbers, put up 61 catches for 631 yards with 4 touchdowns, which is pretty good as someone who started the year as kind of the number 3 receiver and then bumped up to 2. And there was probably 200 yards worth of plays on like deep passes that just the quarterback missed him. So he's impressed me. He had a good last week of the season, 13 targets for 11 catches for 93 yards. He solidified himself as the number 2 second half of last season. And what gets interesting is Allen Robinson's a free agent this offseason. Now the Bears could obviously always bring in another receiver, whether it be through the draft or maybe they re-sign Robinson or they sign someone else. But if Robinson does leave, which I think there's a decent chance he does, that opens things up for Mooney a ton. So it's trending up this week, but also someone who I think is just going to be trending up and getting a ton of hype this offseason. I think you'll see dynasty communities starting to like really hype him up for next season, especially if Robinson does leave. And he's someone who, if you were able to draft him in a later round, awesome. I know in our draft he went like what, 4th round in the rookie draft. Yeah, and he's someone I like a lot heading into next season.
Buy him.
Yeah.
If you can still buy him.
I think all of us are on the same page here. I think all of us like Darnell Mooney. I think he was my trending up 2 weeks ago. He's still trending up. His value is only going to go up. If the Bears ever can figure out their quarterback situation, he's a real player to watch.
Okay, I'm not sure you guys understand how good Darnell Mooney is. Real quick. As a huge Steelers fan, this is the one player of all receivers that people have compared to Antonio Brown deserves that kind of comparison. This kid can play. Yeah. He is good on all phases, and I truly think will become a number 1 receiver. They will draft a receiver, and everyone's going to be like, oh, look at insert receiver from 2021 class's name. Oh, look at him. He's going to be the number 1. Nope. Darnell Mooney. Buy him. You can get him for a second. He's going to be sick.
I didn't say, what would you guys pay for Mooney?
High words, though, for Mooney. Look at
Antonio Brown was Darnell Mooney right now.
A lot of years in a row. What would I pay for him?
Giving up what, like a mid-second?
I definitely wouldn't give up a high second, just because I think there's a lot of receivers that.
I don't think you need to give up a high second. Like, what owner is as batshit crazy as I am for him? Like,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. I do think it would have to give up a late second.
205, yay or nay?
Yay.
Nay for me. I'd give up like 2. Yeah. I'd give up 209. I'd give up 209 for Mooney.
On draft day, I think you might be able to pull that off. When you see who is available in this draft at like that 207, 208, 209 range, dude, like if someone's just thinking, oh, Mooney, he's just another Anthony Miller because that's who he's going to be compared to, you could yoink that motherfucker for nothing.
I hard agree with Frank on this one.
Hard. Wow. I did not realize how big of a Darnell Mooney podcast we were. All right. Who's your trending down, Mooney?
So my trending down is he's been trending down the entire second half of this season. Yeah. It's Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
Is he worth anything at this point?
No.
I don't know.
No.
I wouldn't even give up a third for him. At any point in the 3rd round.
I'd give up a late.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Like if I had 312 and someone offered me Todd Gurley for 312, I think I'm declining. Like
I do that.
He got benched for Brian Hill. He still got some playing time, but Brian Hill became the RB1 of the Atlanta offense the last few weeks of the season. From everything since week 9 has just been bad. Since week 9, his games have been, and again, this is half PPR all scoring we do. 3.4, 0, 2.5, 4.1, 2.4, 6.5, then just 4.
Yeah. I mean, what a cliff. What a cliff he fell off.
It's been bad. Like, it's been even like first half of the season, just because he was getting a lot of touches, like he's fantasy relevant and playable. But man, he's only had 4 games this entire season where he averaged 4.0 yards or more per carry. Everything else has been 3.9 or lower, besides 4 games this year. I don't know what he's worth at all right now.
It's not Gurley, it's Atlanta.
And then he's going to be a free agent this offseason. I just think he gets signed as a backup somewhere. And
no one's picking him up as a starter. I can't imagine.
Yeah, no. He's just going to be
I don't know.
a backup somewhere. This is
Yeah.
kind of what he is, and I don't know if he's worth anything. Maybe you wait till he signs in free agency, and if there's a good running back that hopefully gets the second string to, maybe you can sell him to him as a handcuff. I think that's the only strategy you really have with Gurley.
I'd give up the late third for him, but I wouldn't give up much more. But yeah, sad to see him go. That's a tough drop off. But that's why I have Jonathan Taylor ranked above a lot of the guys who are only a year younger than
Well,
Todd Gurley.
Gurley was different. He had knee problems.
He did have knee problems, but who's to Dalvin Cook tore his ACL before. Who's to say he doesn't all of a sudden develop knee problems? Like
Dalvin
Saquon.
Cook's just made of glass.
Jake's like, shut your mouth.
Dude, I underrated arthritis.
Yeah,
You underrated arthritis.
Frank was not prepared for arthritis. But all right,
man.
Are we ready to move on to the big segment though? This is gonna
big
be fun.
segment. We got our first Dynasty Superflex rookie draft. We are just gonna do the first round today. We based our picks on a mock draft that we found, and we'll tell you what team ended up picking him and at what slot when we talk about each pick. So Lounis, you had the first pick, JT second, I'm third, and then we're gonna snake it through the first round. So
wait, real quick. I'll link the mock in the description of the video and the podcast if you're interested.
Cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we'll have the mock draft link so you guys can go through it and just see on just every position. So starting number one, this was a super tough pick.
you took
I
Justin
put a
Fields
ton of
as
thought
well, right?
into it. JT might have been close apparently. But I took
closer too.
I took Trevor Lawrence at 1. Obviously drafted by the Jaguars. That's just the easy pick, generational prospect. I feel like I don't really need to analyze that much.
If you're pick 1, don't overthink this.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad the Jaguars could be. They actually have a lot of decent offensive weapons. I just don't overthink this. He's been number 1 this whole
And make your
time.
pick now. Like just hand in the selection already.
Yeah, this is easy. Now I guess there's a little more debate on number 2. I've definitely seen a lot more debate for number 2 across rookie mock drafts and whatnot. But in this NFL mock draft, Justin Fields is picked number 2 to the Jets, and that's who I'm taking. I mean, I defended him earlier. If you guys want to just go back and listen to that defense, I don't want to bore you a second time with what I'm saying, but Justin Fields at 2. I get that he's the Jets quarterback. It's the Jets quarterback, but this is a different team. It's not the Adam Gase team of past. We got to put some faith in what's going on. I do hope they pick a decent coach like Eric Bieniemy or Brian Daboll, I think is how you say his last name. Some offensive minded coach, but Justin Fields is my second pick. So now Jake.
Yep, I'm up at 3, and I'm taking another quarterback. It is super flex quarterback, super hard to come by, super valuable. So I'm going with another one here at 3. And it's Zach Wilson, who in this mock draft was picked 7th overall by the Detroit Lions. That presumably means that they moved on from Matthew Stafford. Stafford to the Raiders, please. But anyways, Zach Wilson, BYU quarterback. He looks great. He'll have DeAndre Swift running the ball behind him. They'll have to rebuild that receiving core because both Galladay and Marvin Jones are free agents in Detroit. They will have Quintez Cephas and TJ Hawkinson as their top options in the passing game as of right now. But Zach Wilson looks like he's a very good quarterback coming out of BYU. He can really throw the ball. And that's who I'm taking in the Superflex League here. Not much to go off of. Just dynasty, young quarterback in a Superflex League.
Are you not scared he's going to the franchise where players go to die?
Stafford's done it for the past, 12, 15 years, whatever it's been. When was he drafted? 2007? Whatever, I don't know. Something like that. So I think he'll be fine. They're perpetual 7. Yeah, you could always go to a worse team. You can go to the Jets. You can go to the Jaguars. You can go to the Browns, even though the Browns are good now. But
2000 Stafford was there, by the way.
2008. So
Nine.
the Browns are or the Browns. The Lions are perpetual 7-9 to 9-7 team historically. So
They
I
should
think
just
they'll be
hire
fine.
Jeff Fisher.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be happy. 7-9 to 9-7 every year. Oh,
I
and
like
then
that pick.
we're snaking,
Yep.
so I'm up again at the 4th overall pick in our rookie draft, and I'm going with the Heisman winner. That's Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama. In this mock draft that we're basing this off of, he went 15th overall to the Pats, which I think is a little low for him. I think he'll end up going in the top 10. But in this mock draft, they also had the Pats taking Mac Jones in the 2nd round. I think that pairing is very nice if that were to come true. Pair him just like they did at Alabama. But Devontae Smith, Heisman, wide receivers last a whole lot longer than running backs, and that's why I'm taking one here instead of a running back.
He could theoretically also get paired with his other Alabama teammate in Tua to the Dolphins, which is something to look out for too. So there is upside on Devontae Smith looking forward. But yeah. Now it's my pick at pick 5. Sticking with the super flex, trying not to overthink things. You got Trey Lance drafted at 8 according to this mock draft, drafted to the Panthers. We've seen Teddy Bridgewater hasn't exactly been able to do it. He's average, but the price tag is just not worth what he is. Why not go out and get someone with tremendous upside and a lot of strong traits like Trey Lance? And that's why I'm going to pick him at pick 5. He's got DJ Moore, CMC, Robbie Anderson, just strong offensive cast for him to really go into, and not to mention Matt Rule, who's shown that he's actually a pretty good coach. Yeah, it's something I like going forward. I don't know, we're Trey Lance podcast, so to get him at 5 is pretty nice.
Yo, Frank, what do we got to do to get Trey Lance on here?
Dude, I have no idea. I'll hit him up.
I was actually researching this. If we can't, a lot of times agents will put like their business email, and like their description for stuff. If we email him and just try, be like, "Yo, we're a Trey Lance fan podcast," we can possibly. We're gonna try to make it happen.
Listen, I'll tell you this much though: if they can keep Joe Brady on that staff and they pick up Trey Lance at 8, holy crap!
I would love that. I don't think he'd be I don't think he'd be at pick 5 if that what Frank's saying does happen, because just the upside there is crazy. I get Devontae Smith, he's a solid wide receiver, but that upside there is crazy. If you could,
dude, I'm telling you though, JT, Trey Lance is gonna get crapped on as the process goes because he's not as accurate as Fields and Wilson, and then obviously Lawrence. But like Lawrence is draft stock is gonna move.
Yeah, he's an FCS quarterback who only has like a year under him, so it's questionable.
And with the whole Carson Wentz thing going on, everyone's going to be like, "Oh, Carson Wentz." So
I agree, but that's the same with Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins. I don't know. Trust the process.
I mean, also those were the same exact complaints they had about Josh Allen coming out. Oh, he has a cannon of an arm, but he's not accurate, and he just runs and all this. I don't know. I see a lot of similarities there.
Okay, I'm going to keep this very short because this really pisses me off. Josh Allen was not inaccurate at college. He just was inaccurate statistically. I am done with this. I am so done. That's all I'm saying. I'm muting.
In college, but he was inaccurate as a rookie.
Frank's muted.
Don't get me started.
Who's your pick, Lounis?
My pick at number 6 is my wide receiver 1 for this draft class, Jamar Chase to Philadelphia, where he also goes to the Eagles at 6 in the mock draft. I know people are kind of worried, like, oh, receivers don't usually do amazing. Eagles wouldn't have had a receiver as good as Jamar Chase since I don't even know when.
T.O.
Maybe like young Deshaun Jackson.
Probably since T.O.
Yeah.
Wait, what'd you say?
Since Terrell Owens was on the Eagles.
And CO, yeah, literally, the only other thing I could really think of was CO, and then like maybe prime Deshaun Jackson. It's been a while since they had a receiver that good. I think they want to bring an offensive weapon. Rager showed flashes his rookie year, but I don't know if Rager is a long-term one. I think he can be a really good wide receiver too for an offense. I don't think he's going to be kind of like that dominant wide receiver one. I think Jamar Chase can be. And then we'll see what happens this offseason. I don't expect Alshon or Deshaun Jackson to be back on the team next year. I love Jamar Chase, so he's my pick here at number 6.
All right, and then who are you taking at 7?
At 7, this one's kind of a bold pick because technically it's like you should have gone the running back. I'm not going to say that's wrong, whatever. But the part of me picking him right here at 7 is, according to this mock draft, I love the fit. So I picked Kyle Pitts at 7. In this mock draft, he went number 10 to the Cowboys. If he goes to the Cowboys or to the Cardinals, which is 2 teams I've seen rumored with him, those 2 fits are amazing. Again, this is assuming the Cowboys re-sign Dak. Those would both be phenomenal fits. I think he's going to become a top 5, top 4 tight end pretty much immediately. Obviously, you still have the upper tier with Kelsey, Kittle. You have like Waller and Andrews are up there also. I wouldn't be surprised if Hawkinson up there also. I think he gets into the top 5 really quick. He is crazy athletic, has good hands, runs good routes, like pretty much just like an insanely big receiver that I think is gonna be able to produce really fast as a rookie. So, and with the fit with Dak Prescott, an offense that passes a lot, I like Kyle Pitts a ton.
Completely off topic for a second, but this just popped into my head because of what the Cowboys did in last year's draft, taking CeeDee Lamb. What if they just get to pick 10, Devontae Smith's sitting on the board, and they're like,
oh my God.
What about Devontae Smith?
That'd be such a Jerry Jones move because he won the Heisman.
Exactly.
Like, an Alabama receiver.
Yeah.
That'd be a very crowded team.
It would be ridiculous. You couldn't even.
I think it's something we'll address if it happened.
I am going to clown face all of you besides JT for not taking a running back within the top 7 picks. That is absurd. Has this ever happened in an actual rookie draft?
Okay, but hear me out, Frank. Frank.
Wait. I'll address it with my pick. I'll take this pick right now, and we'll see what everyone says and if they agree with it. Right. So at 108, taking the first running back off the board, I'm taking Najee Harris. In this draft, he's actually getting drafted in the first round to Tampa Bay at pick 25. First running back off the board. Last year, Clyde Edwards-Helaire went pick 32 to the Chiefs, and people immediately were like, he's a first in the startup draft. He's like pick 108 in startups. Now, look, I get it. I'm the person who's been banging the drum saying, like, these running backs all stayed in college for a reason. Like, they stayed back a year because, like, they didn't think they could compete with the running backs in this class. And we've seen the running backs in the 2020 class, the year prior, have been amazing. Like, almost all of them have been really good. And, a few of them are going first rounders or first or second rounds in startups. So they've proven their worth. That being said, like, what I thought about Najee Harris and what I thought about Travis Etienne was that they weren't better than Taylor and Swift, but they were in the conversation with Dobbins, Akers, and CEH, right? So when you have players like this that are already producing and, have a ton of value now, like, I feel like it's pretty crazy to pass on Najee Harris at pick 8. I personally think it's hard for me to take him over a quarterback, especially ones that are drafted in the first 10 picks. But taking him over a receiver, I don't think would have been that crazy. I think, he could have been drafted a little bit higher in here. We've seen what he's been able to do at Alabama. It's been crazy. I expect that to translate to the NFL. He'll be behind a decent offensive line in Tampa Bay. And, Tom Brady for at least 1 year with a bunch of weapons. I like getting him at 8 is high value, and I highly doubt he'll be lasting around 8. He'll probably be drafted in top 6.
I agree with you, JT, but hear me out. obviously you agree with me that he's not going to be taken over Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, probably not even over Trey Lance at this point, right?
Probably not. Well, it depends on, like Frank did say, Trey Lance could get, trashed through the process and whatnot. So it's a possibility he gets drafted before Trey
All
Lance.
right, so there's no doubt that he's going to be at least behind Lawrence, Fields, and Wilson. So at that point, you have the two receivers. You have Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith. And my argument here is wide receivers last much longer. Just their overall duration of their careers is significantly longer than running backs. Just look at it. Even the running backs that last a long time played until they're, 28, 29, 30 max, unless you're Frank Gore. I mean, you're still not producing at that age. But wide receivers can produce well into their 30s, and it's just a better investment, in my opinion. Yes, if you're a team that is close to competing and you want that shiny new running back that's going to give you nice, day one production, yes, it makes sense. And will these running backs get drafted higher in your league? Most likely, just because people will be like, oh, I need a running back, and take them, even though it may not be the correct pick value-wise, just because there's a higher chance.
That's where I'll stop you, though, because I do think Najee Harris will outvalue them, at least in the first couple of years. I think Najee Harris will outvalue Devontae Smith and Jamar Chase in the first year, maybe two, because other than Justin Jefferson, who has had a historic rookie season, I don't think you'd be able to do a 1-for-1 trade with any of the other receivers for probably the top 3 running backs.
You're the biggest CeeDee Lamb fan of all time.
I was gonna say CeeDee Lamb, yeah.
Who's trading Jonathan Taylor for CeeDee Lamb?
No, he said the top 3 running backs. Jonathan Taylor, no. Who would you put 2 or 3?
Swift for Lamb, I probably wouldn't do, and Dobbins for Lamb, I also probably wouldn't do.
Oh, I don't know.
I'll give you Dobbins and Swift for Lamb. I'd probably do that straight up, but that's just me.
You would? All right, but regardless,
and that's just and the reason that is because teams value running backs because there's not many of them, and I understand that. But that's the thing with running backs is they're replaced more often than wide receivers, and that's why the wide receivers hold their long-term value.
Yeah, but I can see where JT is coming from in that if you take a running back that ends up producing like a Justin Jefferson or a CeeDee Lamb, right? And they end up becoming a top 10 in their position, you can probably get more value just because they add more to your team. Like a Jonathan Taylor right now is probably around, if not in the first round of startups, which is over Justin Jefferson and over CeeDee Lamb.
We follow Ryan McDowell, who's pretty good at Dynasty. And obviously what he says isn't, whatever, like it's not definitely consensus, but what's the platform they're on? I forget the platform exactly, but they do mock drafts throughout the season, and a lot of it's from recency bias, definitely. But Jonathan Taylor was drafted, I believe, at 103 in the startups. And I think Swift was also there at like 110 or something.
Swift was 108. And
Swift
Jefferson was 109.
Yeah. So exactly. It's close if you do Swift for Jefferson straight up, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, that's I honestly think what the value is. Like if you could get that running back to produce, and Tampa Bay is tough because it's hard to trust what Bruce Arians says at times. But if Najee Harris does produce like a lot, I think he will. I think he'll definitely outvalue at least one of Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase.
Before we move on, I will give you guys some credit in that I would not like the fit of Najee Harris a ton in Tampa Bay.
That was the only reason I went Pitts over Harris. I like Harris and Pitts are pretty close. Not the only reason, but it's just like because we're doing this off mock draft, not our like individual prospect rankings, which obviously our own prospect rankings is a major part of it. But I like Pitts in Dallas compared to Najee Harris in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I just think that Najee would almost be used in a similar way that they were using Jerome Bettis and Willie Parker in Pittsburgh. I think that they would try to do a similar thing in Tampa Bay where it was like, okay, we have Najee as that more bruiser of a runner, and then having either Ronald Jones or Keyshawn Vaughn or whoever as more of that lightning kind of a back. I think that I would be scared of a situation like that arising where it's not even his talent, it's just I'm not getting the bell cow, which is what I want out of my first round rookie pick running back, especially in a class like this.
That's very fair.
All right, let's move on. So I'm up at 9 now,
Jake at 9.
and I'm going back wide receiver once again. I'm on the bandwagon. I think wide receivers hold more value. It's the way I like to operate my team. I'd rather take a chance on a wide receiver and then trade these young wide receivers for an established running back. That's how I function. That's how I get my running backs, and I'm going to stick with that scenario, that strategy. And that's just some like it, some don't. But I'm going to Jalen Waddle, wide receiver, Alabama. He was producing pretty similarly to Devontae Smith prior to him getting hurt. In this mock draft, he is going 18th overall to the Miami Dolphins, pairing him back with his college quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, however you say his last name, pairing him back with Tua. And I just think Jalen Waddle is that big weapon that we were talking about when we were talking about the Dolphins. So that's where I'm going here at 9.
I think that's great value at 9, actually. I'm a huge Jalen Waddle fan.
Yeah, it's good. It's solid. I think that's the right pick. Who are you picking at 10?
That would have been the second one.
At 10,
This Jake was a little bit interesting.
This might not be consensus, but at 10, I went with Javonte Williams, running back from UNC. He, in this mock draft, went 59th, which is a second-round pick, to Pittsburgh. In this scenario, I'm assuming they're letting James Conner walk in free agency. I don't think Benny Snell has earned a significant amount of snaps since what he's been shown in games. I do like Anthony McFarland out of Maryland. Go Terps. But I do think Javonte Williams is a better running back, and more draft capital will be invested into Javonte Williams here if they take him in the second round. And Mike Tomlin historically likes to ride one back compared to a multiple back system like a lot of teams are doing nowadays. And I just think he could really take that over if he was to go to Pittsburgh, which is why I took him over a guy like Travis Etienne, who this mock had going to the Jets, where I just think they're a shit show of an organization.
Yeah, so interesting pick, and I'll roll both together. So actually, Javonte Williams is since 2018. Javonte Williams is the leader in missed tackles per touch out of the Power 5 schools. Second is Najee Harris. Third is Zach Moss. Fourth is the guy that I'm going to pick, Travis Etienne. So yeah, there is kind of that elusiveness that you're looking for out of a running back. I think he will fly up draft boards, pretty soon. I don't think this is consensus yet that he's RB2, but I do think it might end up being consensus that he's RB2. Who I'm taking at pick number 11, he went to the Jets at pick 34 is Travis Etienne. He'll be the third running back off the board in our mock draft. And so, yeah, like I said, he's the fourth in missed tackles per touch since 2018. But he's actually the first in yards per rush after contact. Jonathan Taylor second, Trey Sermon's third, and DeAndre Swift is fourth. Travis Etienne has been, kind of one or two with Harris for most of the year. I think it's dropped off a little bit. I'm willing to take a chance on him going to the Jets. In this mock draft, he'd be with Justin Fields. It's a nice pairing of rookie quarterback and running back together. Getting him at 11 just seems like an unrealistic kind of mock draft, although I don't really know what I would change too much about this. Like, there's not a lot that I throw around and do differently. I'm a little concerned about what he can do in pass blocking situations. And if you can't pass block, you're not going to get a shot in the NFL. Like, if you can't protect the quarterback, it's going to be an issue. So should he get drafted to the Jets, I do see a learning curve there starting off because you are going to want to protect your second overall pick. But at pick 11, that kind of production that could potentially come to you is too much for me and pass off. So yeah, I'm taking ETN at 11.
I would have done the same thing.
I mean, you could argue here that you can go with a Rashad Bateman, a Rondell Moore, or an Amon-Ra St. Brown. This we pointed this out earlier in the episode, but this second round is going to be completely stacked. If you have a bunch of second round picks, you are going to be fine. Just because you don't have a first this year, this draft is loaded enough that you will still have a good draft class if you have multiple second round picks.
Yeah, I agree. The second round is stacked. And as I'm going to announce my final pick of the first round, my podcast mates don't agree with me.
We don't have to hear it. We can end right
Just
now.
cut it off at 11.
Yeah, 12.
So
this is where
y'all can hate. I'll come back to you guys next season when Kyle Trask is worth more than 112. So at 112, I'm going Kyle Trask. He is the what? In our draft, he's what, the fourth quarterback taken? Fifth quarterback taken. This mock draft had him going in the third round to Chicago. I don't see him falling out of the first, if not first, top 10 picks of the second round. I was surprised. Same thing with Mac Jones went in the second to New England, and I considered him also, along with all those receivers, Bateman, Rondell Moore. So I considered all of them, and like I said, the top of the second round is going to be stacked. I just want Kyle Trask because Kyle Trask is my QB. I have him in my top 5 QBs entering this draft. I think he's insanely talented. I think the bowl game left kind of a bad taste in people's mouths as the last thing they saw of him. But if you just go to the game before the bowl game, he put up a really good performance against Alabama in the SEC championship game. So I think if he is in Chicago, I think he can get that starting job. Maybe not right away, but at some point during the regular season. And young quarterbacks are always going to be the most important thing in dynasty leagues. So give me Trask, even though it's a little bit controversial, at 112.
All right. And to wrap up, I think Frank should give us grades for our draft, and then we'll do a little
I'm about to
sign
get
off
an
here.
F.
Okay. Well, you can't get an F because you did take Trevor Lawrence at 1, so at least you didn't screw that one up. So I think the person I think who had the best draft is easily JT. Second would be Jake, and then third, Lounis.
Can you give yourself a better draft grade than Lounis, even though you didn't take a pick?
No, he at least nailed pick number 1. So if I were to go grades, I'd probably give JT an A because Justin Fields and Trey Lance are two guys that I think have incredible upside. Najee and Etienne were just great value picks at the end of the second. Jake, picking up Devontae Smith at 4 is really nice. And then Javonte at pick 10, for me, like in my rankings personally, is a steal and a half, especially if he lands in Pittsburgh. Lounis, I actually like Lounis's picks really up until pick 12. If this is how it lands out, I'm just not taking Trask at 12. If I want Trask, I'd probably just trade down out of this spot, if I can at least, just because I think he would firmly be that 203, 204, 205 range. And you're going to see other receivers, at least in my rankings, guys like Rondale Moore and Bateman and whoever go before, or even Kadarius Toney, who I think is going to really climb boards, especially if he goes early in a draft. I think that they're just going to go over Trask, especially if he's taken in the third round. So sorry, Clownus. I'll get the clown face off you too. I'm sorry, man.
It's okay. I'll come back to it. We'll come back. We'll see how
I like Trask though. Like we're crapping on you a little bit too much here, Lounis. Because I think that Trask is being incredibly underrated from one bad game. So I wouldn't be terribly opposed to buying him. Just I'm not sure I like buying him in that spot per se, especially with how this draft has fallen out. You know.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. So with that wraps up our preliminary mock draft. I'm sure there'll be ones later to go. probably multiple rounds, but it's kind of pointless to do this without seeing where everyone falls. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening to another episode. I thought this was a really good one. I hope people agree. Shout out in the YouTube comments below if you're on YouTube. Give us a review if you're on whatever podcast you use, podcast platform, and check us out on the website thirdand20.com. Thank you everyone.